Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're taking a huge amount of material on Python and boiling it all down
All the way down.
into one definitive, rapid-fire formula sheet. Basically, this is the ultimate revision guide, personalized just for you.
That's right. Our whole mission here is to just cut through all the noise. We want to give you the facts, the rules, and, the common pitfalls you absolutely have to know.
Whether you're studying for an exam or just trying to really nail down the fundamentals.
Exactly. We're covering everything from installation problems to those tricky indexing rules that even get experienced coders.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Python's core identity. Why is it? Why is Python the language of the decade?
Well, all the sources really agree on this. It's a true general-purpose programming language.
Meaning you can build anything with it.
Anything. Data science models, web servers, automation scripts, you name it. And its dominance really comes from two things. First, it's just so accessible.
Beginner-friendly.
Incredibly beginner-friendly. The syntax reads almost like clean English. You're not fighting the language to express a simple idea.
That clarity is so powerful. And the second thing.
It's just so versatile and portable. The code you write in your Mac today will run on a Windows machine tomorrow. No huge changes needed.
But there's one technical feature that you absolutely have to remember for revision. It defines everything about how Python runs.
Yes, this is crucial. Python is an interpreted language. It doesn't compile everything into one big file beforehand.
It runs the code line by line.
Line by line at runtime. And that changes how you think about execution and debugging.
Okay, wait. If it runs line by line, how does that compare to something like C++ in terms of speed? Is Python fast enough for, say, algorithmic trading?
That's an excellent question. And no, in terms of raw processor speed, it is slower than a compiled language.
So there's a trade-off.
A huge one. But the trade-off is development speed. And Python makes up for that execution lag by using highly optimized libraries, like NumPy, that do the heavy lifting under the hood.
Ah, so you get the simple Python syntax, but with the speed of compiled C code running the hard parts.
Exactly. That's why it's dominating those fields.
That context is so important.
Okay.
So moving on to foundational logic. We need to stress that computational thinking, or CT, is the real prerequisite here.
Absolutely. The logic, the problem-solving patterns, they all come from CT. If you can break a problem down logically, Python is just the grammar you use to write the solution.
Right. So don't just memorize syntax. Understand the logic first.
Please, it will save you so much time.
So if the logic is covered, what's the first physical hurdle? The setup. Those little things that stop you before you even start.
The dreaded setup checklist. Okay, number one. When you install from python.org, you have to check the box that says add python.exe to payact.
If you miss that, you're in for a world of pain.
A world of pain. Your computer won't know where to find Python, so you can't even run a simple command like Python version to check if it worked.
That is the ultimate time sink. And for VS Code users, there's another trap waiting, right? Specifically with user input.
Ugh, yes. This gets everyone. You install the Code Runner extension, and by default, it runs your code in the output pane. But that pane can't handle user input.
So if you use the input function, your program just hangs.
It just stalls. You have to go into the settings and change it to run in terminal. The terminal can handle that live input. It's a 5-minute fix that saves hours of confusion.
Right, and we should also mention, for practice on the go, there are mobile options like Pydroid 3 or web-based tools like Replit.
Absolutely. So let's get to the first building block of any program, variables. The best analogy is to think of a variable as a named container.
A label for a piece of data stored somewhere in memory.
Exactly. And it's defined by its name, its value, which can be changed, and your ability to reference it later.
Which brings us to what you called the #1 bug for beginners.
The input function. The rule you must burn into your brain is that input always returns a string value. Always.
So if I ask the user for their age and they type in the number 50, Python doesn't see the number 50.
Nope. It sees the text character 5, followed by the text character 0. It sees the word 50.
And if you try to add 10 to that...
Error. Instant type error. Because you can't do math on text. This means you almost always have to do type conversion right away.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But first, the rules for naming these containers.
Yeah.
There are 4 of them, and they're non-negotiable.
Rule 1. No spaces. Use an underscore instead. Rule 2. No numbers at the very beginning of the name. Name 1 is fine, one name is not.
Yep.
Rule 3. No special characters, except for that underscore. And rule 4 is more of a best practice, but it's critical.
Don't use reserved keywords.
Right. Don't name your variable sum or if or for. Python already uses those words for its own functions, and you'll break things in very confusing ways.
And what about the value itself? You mentioned literals.
A literal is just the fixed data on the right-hand side of the equal sign. In xwix10, x is the variable name, and 10 is the integer literal. It's the stuff you're putting in the container.
Got it. And a quick note. Your best friend for debugging is the print function. Just print your variables to see what's going on.
And use comments. A hash symbol for single lines or triple quotes for multi-line blocks. Document your thinking.
So let's dive into those types, the different kinds of stuff we can store.
The 4 basics, you've got integer, int, for whole numbers. You have float for decimals. And it's worth noting, Python floats don't have a fixed precision, so you can get tiny rounding errors sometimes.
And then there's Boolean, which is just true or false, the foundation of all logic.
And finally, strings, SGR, text enclosed in quotes. A key point here is that you can only perform 2 operations on strings: addition, which is concatenation,
Join them together.
and multiplication by an integer, which is repetition. If you try to subtract or divide strings, Python will give you an error.
There's a really interesting quirk with Booleans, though, the arithmetic no.
Yes, this is a great trivia question. Python treats true as the integer 1 and false as the integer 0.
So true plus true is actually 2.
It is. And true plus false is 1. You probably won't use it in your code, but it's a great sign you understand how Python works under the hood.
Okay, this all comes back to type conversion. Since input always gives us a string, we need to convert it.
Using the conversion functions,
Yeah.
int, stripe, float, and bool.
And sometimes you see these nested inside each other, which can look confusing.
That's called function composition, and the golden rule is simple. Evaluate the innermost function first and work your way out. Always inside out.
Okay, and there's one really specific edge case with Boolean conversion that trips people up.
The empty string. Yes. If you pass an empty string that's with nothing inside, not even a space to the bool function, it converts to false.
But any other string, even one with just a single space, becomes true.
Correct. The empty string is considered falsy in Python.
All right, let's move on to expressions and operators, the tools we use to manipulate the data in our variables.
First, the distinction. An expression is a piece of code that evaluates to a single value, like 5 plus 3. A statement is a full instruction, like an if statement, that controls the program's flow.
And our toolkit for expressions starts with the arithmetic operators. Plus, minus, multiply are easy, but division is special.
It really is. A single slash is standard division, but it always returns a float.
Always. Even if it's 25 divided by 5.
Always. You will get 5.0, not 5. You have to remember that.
So if you actually want a whole number, an integer, you use the double slash.
Exactly. The double slash is integer division. It chops off the decimal part. It's perfect for when you want to know how many full minutes are in 150 seconds. You want 2, not 2.5.
And the modulo operator, the percent sign.
That gives you the remainder. So 150% 60 would give you 30. The 30 seconds left over. And of course, the double asterisk is for exponents.
When you mix all these together with comparisons like or logical operators like and, or, you have to worry about the order of operations.
You do. It's called operator precedence. It generally follows BODMSS, but the key is that brackets are king. They override everything. And usually, arithmetic happens before comparisons, which happen before logical operations.
Okay, time for the syntax hacks. The 4 high-value tricks to remember. First, the comma in the print statement.
Oh yeah, this is so much cleaner. If you use a comma, like print, word 1, word 2, Python automatically adds a space for you. If you use a plus sign, you have to add the space manually.
Number 2, string slicing and indexing. This is huge. Python uses zero-based indexing.
Meaning the first item is at index 0, not 1. And the most common mistake with slicing is forgetting the rule for the endpoint.
The format is start.end, but the end index is excluded.
Excluded. If you want the first 4 characters, indices 0, 1, 2, and 3, you have to write .4. You always go 1 past the index you want.
Hack number 3, the in operator.
Super useful. It's a quick, clean way to check if a small string is inside a bigger one. Like checking if a student's roll number contains the branch code DS. It just returns true or false.
And the last one is just elegant variable swapping.
One of Python's best features. You don't need a temporary variable. You can just write var1, var2, var3, and it swaps them in one line. It's clean, it's readable.
This idea of variables referencing each other even applies to really complex math problems, like that continued fraction example. You just break it down into a chain of variables.
Exactly. x1 depends on x2 depends on x1, so on. It's the same fundamental concept.
So we've covered the syntax, the rules, the logic. Now let's zoom out. Why does mastering this stuff matter so much?
Because these fundamentals are the keys to the kingdom. They are the foundation for Python's reach into basically every modern tech domain.
And that reach is what drives the market demand. In web development, for example, it's powering massive sites.
You have huge frameworks like Django for complex backends, but also tiny micro-frameworks like Flask for building quick, efficient APIs.
But the real growth engine right now seems to be data science and machine learning.
Without a doubt. And if you're in that field, you live and breathe the core libraries. You have to know pandas for cleaning and manipulating data tables. It's essential.
And NumPy for all the heavy-duty math and matrix operations. That's where the speed comes from.
Yep. Then for ML and deep learning, you have entire ecosystems like Keras, TensorFlow, and PyTorch. And of course, you need to visualize the data with tools like Matplotlib or Seaborn.
Python is also critical for web scraping.
Right, using the requests library to talk to servers and Beautiful Soup to parse the HTML that comes back.
And a big one, cybersecurity.
A very big one. It's the language of choice for automating both offensive and defensive tasks. Prototyping a script to test a vulnerability is just so fast in Python.
We're also seeing it everywhere in IoT and robotics.
Because the high-level syntax makes prototyping on hardware like a Raspberry Pi or a Jetson Nano so much faster. You can go from an idea to a working robot much more quickly.
So that's the big picture.
That's the synthesis. We've given you the distilled formula sheet, the syntax, the operators, and the massive landscape of applications. But you have to remember, mastering variables, types, and operators is non-negotiable. Everything else, from pandas to Django, is built right on top of that foundation.
It's the absolute bedrock. So before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought that connects a few of the dots we've talked about today.
We established that Python is huge in cybersecurity for automation. We also established that it's an interpreted language, executing code strictly line by line. So given the need for speed and stealth and security, whether you're attacking or defending, how might that line-by-line execution style affect the design of a high-stakes security script?
Would a security analyst stick with Python for its speed of development, or would they need to switch to a compiled language when every millisecond counts?
Something to explore as you continue your own deep dive.